if we are like surrounded by certain society, or we are like at a certain age or whatever, tend to put certain rules, right? Like we need to learn it in like this or that time. And that would be something that basically, like what you have said, would totally limit you, because yeah, I mean, there is basically like pretty much no limitations. You can like if you try to like be without any of these like beliefs or preconceptions or something like that, you can actually approach the things like in the most flexible way.
Hello, Katka. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for inviting me here. I'm very excited about this meeting.
Yeah, we had really fun conversation in the pre-interview that we did. And I want to start with the question that I feel like it will be the main question I will ask everybody coming on, which is in alignment with the podcast title, which is Chase Impossible. So, what is something that at one point felt impossible for you, and now it is your new normal?
I guess the very first thing what comes up into my mind is or are languages. So I have always since I was a little child been very interested into um, getting to learn foreign languages. And even if like, I mean, I come from a very small town in Czech Republic, it wasn't like anything normal that people would travel or like speak different languages. But so I always had in my mind and was pretty much unachievable. And specifically also the Czech education is in a way that they tell you like everything is so difficult and like so challenging, and you have to work hard, let's say. So they also told me like you like never can, I don't know, like study in different languages or for example or things like that. And yeah, I mean, then pretty much when I was like 24, 25, I was able to speak 4 or 5 of them. And I've actually yeah already studied in like 2 or 3 of like foreign languages. And by now I speak 7, and it's pretty much very normal. Like it's basically normal. So if I say it somewhere, it's nothing special to me. Of course, it's to the others, even if by now I don't really feel that. So yeah.
So, well, first of all, what are the languages?
The languages. Well, so I'm native in Czech, and then I speak English, German, Spanish, Dutch, Portuguese, Italian, and I used to speak
Nice.
French. So French is like on very basic level for
That's
now.
pretty cool. So, did you find it hard to learn them because you were told that it's hard or it's unachievable, but when you were doing it, what did it feel like that?
Honestly, like when I started and like I was learning, I mean, we also had like 3 languages in a school, so it was like yeah, for sure it was like said it's hard or something, or it's like not possible. And I mean, not many people speak 7 languages or didn't speak around me. Um, but there was something really like apparently from my like very young age when I was like 4. I apparently said I will be speaking different languages. So there was something really like driving me. And like looking back, I had like all these different small ideas on how to do it in like more natural way and more like sustainable way, and it basically like worked out. And it was probably like a few like things that I would like pick up from some like, I don't know, even book conversations or something like that. And they would stick, like for example, like think in the language, of course, or like learn it in a way of a child. And well, then later when I studied psychology, we like did some of these factors, or looked at them in a scientific way. But yeah, at a certain point when I was like, I'm going to study to Germany in German, like do my studies in German, the German teacher, even if I was like in between the best three in a school. And like I did when I was like 18, the C1 level in German language. He told me I will never be able to. But at that time, I was really like, well, I know what I'm capable of. Like, I was pretty, um, yeah, straightforward and determined.
So, so question here, because sometimes when somebody is told, you'll never be able to do it, especially when it comes from kind of authority or somebody that you would assume that they know what they're talking about, they listen to that and they take it on board. Like, what was it that made you to think, well, I know what I can do, and kind of not listen to that or not be affected by that, where down the line it can affect what you do, how much you do, and the results that you get.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess it could be that I just knew or was convinced that the Czech education is just not good in this sense, and that they just basically not support us. Rather, they tell us what we did wrong and like undermine our powers or like what we have actually already achieved. So I knew this, and I hated those teachers that behaved like that, because yeah, like looking back, specifically like at me, there probably was much more what I could have learned in a school, but um, yeah, because of this approach that they have, it wasn't that possible. But basically, yeah, I was at that time, I was this person who would be like, well, I know how it's done better than you.
How did you take that on, like in other aspects of life as well?
What do you mean?
So, for example, if you now go to work and somebody tells you that, oh, you're doing this, or like you can't do this, you can't do that, or if you are training and somebody tells you you can't do this or can't do that, did you have the same thing in those areas as well?
Um, yeah, so it's an interesting question because I have the feeling the more I know or the more I have achieved, um, yeah, the more I'm like influenceable by these things, which is which is strange. Like it was easier basically to be like I know a bit or I don't know a yeah, I know a bit or like I'm just convinced that I know and I will know. Um but yeah, I have experienced it like specifically in the past years because of course like it wouldn't be just languages, so I would be like doing this in a sport or doing this in yeah, I don't know, study in different countries, um and and so yeah, there would be like so many things coming together, so I'm like capable of so many things, I know it. And yeah, for example with sports it's interesting because I have always done a lot of sports, but I've never called like I've never seen myself as an athlete.
I can relate.
um because I don't know, it was just like it was that way, even if it was like my lifestyle. And you know, like later on in my 20s I would start with like climbing and windsurfing, kite surfing, and I would do it basically, yeah, probably one third of my life would be dedicated to that, beside the school and beside all the other things and some work. But I would never call myself an athlete. And I, by now, see there a thing that was actually like since I was so young, probably thought in the family or this belief of like I don't know, athletes like don't serve for anything, or like this is not something that you can like earn your life with, or like all these things. But specifically, I guess, athletes are stupid or they're not smart.
Mm.
And I could see that, like, with the language, when we talk about the language, when we started, like, there has there has never been like direct, this is not possible.
Yeah.
You know, like it was like, okay, it's a challenge for me. And as you have asked at the beginning, it would be like, I don't know, when I was 16, 17, it would be just like unreachable goal. Like I will never, ever, probably when I'm 90. Um, and yet then I was 24 and spoke five, right? But there wasn't really like directly for like a longer period of time this belief around me, this is not possible, or this is difficult, or this is like somehow impossible. Yeah, which probably like come like because of your podcast, you know, like the beliefs and the beliefs around you are so strong.
Yeah, and I think the the dangerous piece there is that a lot of times we end up believing those beliefs instead of questioning them, challenging them, and thinking, even like um with certain beliefs, it's like, is there actually any proof that it's true? You know, because we, especially with beliefs that are coming from childhood, which is like in some cases even like most of them, we
Yeah.
now continue our life, and now we're at the point where it's like, oh, I'm this and that, and it's like you believe that like 10 years ago, that's where it was like the seed was planted, and now if you look around your life, it's actually not true. Like I can give you an example.
For
I had
sure.
this strong belief that I'm bad with people, that I'm just like, I'm bad with people, and most people that know me, they're like, what do you mean? Like that's not true, because I was convinced I'm boring, because when I was growing up, I would be interested in like psychology, self-development, that kind of stuff. Everybody else was interested in like partying and, drinking and, all this kind of stuff. It didn't really, like, it wasn't my thing. I wasn't interested in it. And I would feel like an outsider. And I would feel like, oh, I don't fit in. I'm interested in like, I wake up at 5 a.m. to do my workouts. And I started to do that when I was like 10 years old. And all these things, I would literally feel like, and because of that, I was like, well, I'm boring, I'm not interesting. But then years later, when I would meet the right people, those are the people that will find me interesting. And vice versa, the same thing. And that's where, like, I remember I would still have that, or like I would have some social anxiety or something like that. And and what I would do is I would start to challenge that, and I'm like, okay, is that actually true? Um, or am I just not practicing it? Because like if you don't socialize, you will lose socializing skills. That's pretty like logic. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna start networking with people. And I just networked with, literally I did like few hundred calls one-on-one with networking. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine. Like I'm not stressed. And I can talk to pretty much anybody. And and that's where, like, a lot of times what we need to do is, when we identify that thought or whatever is that the
Yeah.
belief, it's, even if it feels true, you might even ask somebody else and be like, so there's a good example here. So when I was training for half marathon, I had this thought the whole time, because I was out of shape. I was like overweight, and the whole time I was like, why is nobody calling me out for, like, or telling me like, aren't you too fat to run half? That is my thought. I was like, so when is somebody going to ask me that? And then after I finished, I asked few of my friends, or like I said about that thought. One of them was like, my first thought was, she's probably going to be busy because she's training for a marathon. The other one was, I couldn't do that. That was their first thought. And here I was thinking like, oh my gosh, nobody's saying the most obvious thing here when nobody was thinking that. So I think sometimes it's so interesting how ridiculous our minds are, and where our thoughts go, but it's also really interesting. And I think that's where we might even touch on that importance of curiosity and approaching things with curiosity instead of, I usually say, like, instead of approaching things with judgment, approach them with curiosity. Can you talk a
Oh,
bit
for
more on that?
sure. Oh, for sure. Like this is one of the probably like biggest factors, and like the factor with like the most weight, I would say. Because the curiosity like gives you all possibilities.
Mm, yeah.
Judgment judgment, then you actually focused on the negative,
Yep.
and then you just like uh, um yeah, drawn towards the negative. But yeah, the curiosity is an amazing thing, because like then anything is possible. And as I have mentioned before, yeah, there is a research on like how to learn languages on like the most effective way, and they basically like tell you the different factors of what they have found out. And um, what this research shows, actually, you have to just have a look on a young child that is learning language, because the child is what also a curious human being, and through this curiosity and like not being um afraid of anything, just like trying out, um, yeah, makes it possible to basically say things 10 times wrong to finally learn them how to say it in a correct way. And this can be basically like generalized on any or used in any area. So yeah, the curiosity is incredible, because for example, so if I go back to the sports, when I started, so I've been kiting for like 5 6 years, and then it came to a point where I would be like, yeah, well, I dedicate so much time to it, and like I'm a bit bored, or I would like to bring it to like a next level. And it was during 2020, yeah, pretty much around like when COVID started. And I was like, well, there were like this yeah, it's getting into the Olympics, uh, I would like to do that. But it was another like totally another discipline, which I've never tried before. But I just like had this, yeah, well, actually, I want to do this. Um, and then, yeah, less than a year after that, I was already like getting into learning this particular discipline, which is foiling. Um, and then I was basically like on one side questioning a lot, like, I mean, is it even possible that I like reach any level of being able to like keep with the others that have been training already for like 3 or 4 years? And I was literally like, at the beginning, you just like in the water all the time. So you're learning the transitions, and you just basically do it 1,000 times, and you fall 1,000 times at the beginning, right? So it's really crazy. And also, I did it in a spot where in Dominican Republic, where it's pretty small, everybody knows you, and this particular discipline, I was able on, or I am supposed to do also in very light wind. So I would be just mostly the only person on the water, so everybody could see me. But I tell you, I just didn't, and because I like I didn't yeah, I was just so much focused on what I'm supposed to do, what I'm supposed to learn, and there, yeah, was not, again, when we come back to like judgment or even like beliefs, because it's such a new sport, I didn't know anyone doing it, like just the people around me, or the like very few people, or like my coach. And so I just didn't have any expectations how it's going to turn out. So the curiosity was one of the, like, I was just trying out with the curiosity. And then it turned out to, yeah, like as you say, like try out, and if you don't try, then of course you won't learn it.
Okay. I love this concept, and a lot of times it's easier said than done. So with that, I would want to talk a bit more on the failure and making mistakes piece, because for the most part, when you try something or you learn something new, you will be bad before you can be good. And I think a lot of times when we take up something new, that there's so much fear of the failure of mistakes. It's like that fear is getting in a way of even taking up that new activity or that new business or whatever it might be. So with and then what happens is because of the initial failures, it's like, oh, it's not for me because see, I kept failing or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like self-fulfilling prophecy then, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So how to navigate that beginning where literally everything you do for the most part will go wrong because you don't know what you don't know, and through those mistakes you learn what you even don't know, but then it's like learning how you get to the point where you know. But so how to deal with that beginning of making mistakes, and in some ways also how to not make those mistakes mean something, because I think a lot of times when it comes to failing, that it feels so challenging because we make it mean something. Oh, I failed, so it means this about me. So how to, in some ways, how to approach it as a with childlike approach, being like just try and try and try and try, and there's no, oh, I have tried this many times and now, like, I think this is time
Yeah,
to give up.
yeah. Oh, that's a like when you started to say that, like so many ideas or like ways to talk about came up to me, but like one of them is yeah, I guess big at a certain yeah like be without any of these like beliefs or preconceptions or something like that. You can actually approach the things like in the most flexible way. Mm, but yeah, the failures. So I feel sometimes this is like my explanation. If you decide to do something like that you have the perception of it's like super not achievable, if you like determined to do it, um you you and you basically like focus on the small steps, and not always like have the goal in mind, but not always like be, oh, like I'm not there yet, or like when am I going to be there, or like to wanting it to happen like yesterday. um then you actually like step by step like approaching it. But um so when I, for example, do some workshops or retreats, specifically with kiting, I I like this exercise of like make um an epic session out of any session you do. And it could be like even the session where you like where your kite drop in the water somewhere in the middle of ocean, somebody had to rescue you. So um basically like find out that you even like woke up and like got out and like went kiting, and like doing this, we maximize the gratefulness, or we like concentrate on what we are like grateful for. And apparently can be seen already in the scientific evidence for that there is no place for negativity. So we and what we can see is as a result that basically this like any like small steps, and it can be even like the steps backwards, which then often send you like 10 steps forward. uh yeah, basically see it as this is the part of the process. And I mean, of course, like it's very easy said than done sometimes. But yeah, that's one thing. And then also like this, like having a big challenge that seems so unreachable. I feel sometimes when there's the determination, is it's easier than something simple, because you know there's a lot, and then um you kind of naturally get into a certain flow where you concentrate on the important and you don't spend time with the not important.
Yeah. I really like that you talked about the small, I call them baby steps. Where, and usually like one example that I use is we have this like huge goal, which is the mountain. And usually we don't climb the mountain by looking at it or like looking at the peak. You need to look down to the steps that you need to take. But then also once in a while you want to look up to make sure you're actually on track and see if there's any changes you might
Yeah,
need to take. Um, but even like with that, I really like what you said about the impossible as well, because one thing that in touching on that curiosity, it's something that I experienced with my half Ironman that usually trained for it like 6 to 8 months. I gave myself 90 days and I have no background in the sport. And they were like, and it was interesting because in the episode that I recorded with my friend talking about it, um, she mentioned that I had doubt before the race day. But I actually didn't feel any doubt. I just had this not knowing because I don't know if I can finish it. I actually don't know. And I will only know it tomorrow. But it was, and I think what helped me to do that, because there was a time that I wouldn't even sign up for it unless I had guaranteed that I can finish it. Not even talking about documenting online where everybody can see that, "Oh, I might fail and now everybody gonna see." And I think it was that I approached it with curiosity and more so with focusing on pretty much like the week before, I had this call with my coaching client, and he has done half Ironman, and he's like, "Have you done transitions?" I'm like, "No." "Have you sorted your diet?" I'm like, "No." Or like nutrition on the day. He's like, You have to do that because like those are like really important pieces of the race." Um, and that's when I was like, I don't think I'm ready based on that information that I just got 1 week before the race. Um, But what I did, I don't know where that idea came from. I just checked my before and after pictures with like beginning and then like 85 days later. And I was like, whoa, I'm already winning. There's no way how I can lose or fail. Even if I don't finish the race or for whatever reason something goes wrong, there's no way how I'm right now losing or failing. And I think a lot of it also could be to your point about that perspective. Because I think a lot of times what we do focus on is, am I actually finishing this goal or not, instead of the list of the things that you actually have accomplished, or even the growth that you have experienced in
yeah,
going towards that goal. And we're just like, oh, I'm not there yet. So I guess, and actually I want you to talk on this because this is something that I hear so much, that even like people ask me and I hear that sentence even before they make decision. What if it's not worth it? What if I waste my time? What did you respond to? And have you, I assume you have experienced that even like with clients that you're working with. Um, what is, what do you say to somebody who is at the beginning of decision, or they're
yeah,
afraid to commit because they're like, what if I do all, I commit, I go into this impossible and I fail?
yeah. Honestly, it's actually my story. So I have, and I couldn't say why, or like I have ideas, but I would always commit it to the, I would always commit to the things. Um, and I would never like think of time or money or anything. And also I have to say that like I pretty much um sometimes also had to, like I wouldn't be like I wouldn't be actually supported by my parents or by, by the family, because they're, as I now realize, very like narrow thinkers, and I'm not. So like there wouldn't be any like either financial or any like personal support. Somehow from my mom there was this like yeah, you can do it. When it was academic things, then it was just like, yeah, for sure you can do it. And that was enough.
Mhm.
Basically just like someone who says it's possible, even if you don't see it around you, it's possible, like go for it. I don't even think she really thought about that, but she was just like, yeah. And it was enough. But now with sports, or like with my now Olympic qualification, um it was very different, because I was like, okay, I'm 31, I'm 30. I uh I probably, like, when we look at athletes, so it would be like there would be like many questions of, okay, I'm older. I even if like I don't see at any point any limitation, but there would be still like this, okay, it's believed I'm old. um it's believed, I mean, I don't even know where I get the money for it, because I actually need the time to put into it in destinations that are actually like where other people go for vacation. So like, is it worth, like, exactly what you said, like, is it worth it? Like, how is it worth it that someone, and specifically there, it came for the first time, I think, in my life, to the point where I needed other people to support me. Like, it wasn't just me that would like work it all out. mm, and then I would be like, because if I do it for myself, I put everything into it, I don't care. Like, I know that like I will have learned so much. But there it was actually this like, okay, but what if I fail? And of course there was like failing of, okay, I'm not winning the Olympics, or like I'm not even qualifying in the Olympics. So like, people like sponsors would like put money in me, and like, for what then? And this was for really like the first, for, yeah, 2 years. It was a huge like now and then doubt, even if I would be like super into training, like I would be, like very, I would be training, actually, now looking back, probably too much. um but like, this was a great problem, actually, like a really big limitation, because it would be like ongoing thought now and then, like, yeah, but what if I'm failing, what if I'm not achieving the things that I'm actually like working on? And then also like looking at the other athletes, like, I mean, because you see, and like how the Olympic selection is, you already kind of know like who is going to, like, even a year or two before, you like see who is probably going to get into it or not. And then it's like, well, crazy, like all these people, they're having so many people in a team, like, for sure they're not getting in it. Like, how they are like live, how do they like live with it? um yeah. And I guess um yeah, so I struggled with that for sure, and it took me a long time. But I think because there were all these beliefs around me that I grew up at, that like athletic career is not really a thing, or it's like not a cool thing, or it's not something that like makes sense. You're not really like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Even if I look back, it's so incredible, like what I have learned, and what like I have like done. And it also brought me to like new concepts in like sports psychology, or like this like peak performance. um and specifically with exactly the discipline that I do. But I struggled with, like, other people need to believe in me.
Mm. Like you felt like you needed that to believe in yourself, or it was
No.
more like that expectation that you need to perform because others have put energy into you around you.
um No, more that I wasn't really able to get enough financial support, because there was like this great belief of, like, how am I and what if I fail? Like, what if I fail and they just put it, yeah, money in me and like I fail?
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting that sometimes those decisions, even let's say in this example with sponsors, their decision not to put money in can now put more doubt,
Yeah.
like, or that like external, whatever is the external situation or external
Hmm.
reaction to whatever you want to do, that somebody's like, I don't think that's like the for you, or like, oh, I think it's too late, or I think like, I don't think you got it based on like where you are right now and all this kind of stuff. I'm
Oh, for
really,
sure.
and I'm really fascinated by people that, and even like in some pieces of your story, I can definitely hear that, where somebody tells you you can't do this or you can't do that, and you're like, well, watch me, kind of thing, instead of
Yeah.
like, okay, I guess I can't do it then.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like it's so interesting how, whether it's our childhood or our like personalities or something, that determines how we're going to respond.
Yeah.
Because in my case, it was, well, I didn't even consider professional sport because I had this underlying belief that I'm just not good enough. And even though I remember, I was playing basketball and I was the only player playing all game with no breaks, partly because I would wake up at 5 a.m. and do workouts every single day just to get better. But initially it was coming from like, I'm not good enough. I need to work extra. And then I remember I got to the national team selection and I intentionally didn't do much. I didn't even try because I was like, well, I'm not good enough anyway, so I'm gonna be out soon enough. Um, and it wasn't even, I never saw how good I actually was. Only now that I'm back at playing basketball, I'm like, oh, I'm actually like pretty good. And this is like 10 years later. Um, and and I remember I had this conversation with my parents because my parents were kind of like, I was really good at school as well. I was pretty much like the top class. And I remember they were kind of like nudging me towards quitting basketball. I also didn't have a nice coach. Like she was respecting me because I didn't make any trouble and I was a good player, but she wasn't too nice. Like she was too nice is putting it lightly. And my parents were like nudging me towards quitting the basketball. And later, that's like years later, once I'm not playing anymore, I learned that they wanted me to quit because they didn't want me to go professional. But for me, it was never a thought to go professional. I didn't see myself going professional in basketball. And it was so interesting how, instead of, let's say, us sitting down having that conversation, it's like nudging or like kind of the
Yeah.
and I didn't know that I didn't want to go. I was really into basketball. I really enjoyed it. To your point, I also didn't like yourself. I didn't see myself as an athlete, but I think big part of it was that underlying belief that I'm just not good enough. Like even though I put like hours and hours and hours on top of everybody else, it was, and like the interesting piece there, or the question there would be, well, first of all, did you end up succeeding with that impossible task that you had?
Uh, which one? The
With the what you talked about, like you getting support, and then if you're gonna succeed, not succeed, did you end up like which outcome did end up happening?
Yeah, actually, the outcome that ended up happening was that I didn't get enough support that was needed, and yeah, and like there was, I guess there were like two beliefs, and I mean it's very important that you mention it because this like underlying beliefs that we have from a childhood, and exactly what you say, even like this, like your parents wanted this but they didn't want to say that, and so like this was like super like in the air there but not really, like we perceive it. And yeah, and then it can come up in situations like that, right? Or it can be even come in, come into a belief that she say like I'm not enough, but like because they hope that you won't go that way but you didn't even want it, right?
Yeah,
Like it's crazy how like these beliefs can actually be created. But yeah, so I guess there was like this yeah, I had like really long time to deal with like this doesn't make sense.
Mm.
It's just a sport. Like I don't know, I don't really like produce anything with it. And but then I would be like, no, this makes sense. This is like I inspire people with that. Like I'm like there are so many things coming out of that, and there has been coming basically. Um, but yeah, I had to really like long struggle with this. Like this doesn't make sense. Like oh, who's going to support me? Um, of course, like at the beginning, it's interesting. Like at the beginning, there was like I'm not enough, probably, or like more the doubt. Like I'm not
Yeah.
enough, and like will I ever be like able to come to that level? Which then actually within basically like 4 months, it was obvious that I am. um, very short time.
Yeah,
But
very.
that's what you meant too. Like, I mean, because like if you are have this determination, and you have the right surrounding, it can go really fast, actually. Um, but yeah, so I like didn't really, yeah, it ended up not having enough, and I guess it's been because of these two beliefs. Like I'm like who is going to put money into like a gamble into me, basically, kind of a thing. And it basically like kind of doesn't really make sense. But like yeah, before at any other thing I would never really like think of these things, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I put my resources in it. I love it.
Yeah, it's like even as you're speaking, I'm thinking, okay, so in my story, what if I didn't have that belief that I'm not good enough and actually went on to pursue the basketball, which brings a topic that I think is quite important to discuss, especially with wanting to go after big things because failure is a possibility there, and then a lot of times with failure comes regrets. And even like dealing with those regrets or looking back and being like, if I, let's say my story, oh, if I didn't have this belief, then I might have gone there or I might have done this, or like all the what ifs, you know. Even though I have no regrets, even now I'm just grateful I can play again. I'm like, oh, I missed this. Um, and but at the same time, even now, I'm thinking to kind of cut back a bit on basketball because I'm focusing on finishing Ironman next year, and it will take a lot of focus, and time and energy. But how do you deal, or like, how would you, even if you don't have any regrets yourself, you probably have talked to at least one person who does, or have helped somebody who does. Um, how can people listening deal with any regrets that they might have, or how to approach it or shift the perspective on it?
Regret, you mean?
Yeah,
I mean, if we, for example, take like it depends on what regret, right?
yeah.
But like if I think of an athletic career, like it never there like never can be any regret, because if you um go of what you do, basically, if you're an athlete, you are so strong mentally, and you're determined. You're just like trying, basically, you're also like playing with really high like mental activities of your brain, and they're basically, I would say, the way like magic is happening, right, in a sense of that we're you touch some boundaries that you have never thought that you would have ever been like able to. So, for example, like athletic career is really amazing because, like, I mean, VA can really broaden our possibilities, like inspire others what is, or like show to like the world what is actually like possible. It is like much more possible than we have ever thought. And basically, yeah, like create something new and put the word to like next levels. Mm, so there actually can be like a no regret ever. But it's just so strange that like, I mean, if I say it to myself, there was just this, um if it's just on me, I do it for myself, all good. But like if there are like other people involved, I don't want to like let them down or something like that. Yeah. But like how to deal with regret, I like, because I'm a psychologist, and the way that I've been working, I use this one method that you can basically like reprogram pretty fast any of these like negative and uncomfortable situations or feelings that has happened to you. So yeah, that's basically like the easiest form to do that, because um, any other methods that are known to me are too like superficial and too like exhausting to work through them or with them. So yeah.
Yeah, I think even like with regrets, to your point, it really depends on the situation. Because it can be, let's say, when it comes to athletic pursuit, it can be regret of not hitting the target, but you did all you could. But it also could be regret of like, oh, I was slacking here, slacking there. I wish I didn't do that, and all the thoughts that come with that. One thing that, as you were speaking, I was thinking on, because I was thinking, do I have any regrets? And I don't think I do. I can't look back and kind of have some kind of emotional charge around it. Um, I think the way I look at it is, in some ways, it's if I was where I was and I was making decisions based on where I was, which was the best decision I could make at the time, or which is the even like, let's say, and that's with things that I can control. With things that I can't control, something didn't work out, or like for example, I wanted to go study to Canada. I got in a school, everything was happening. I was there like I think 8 months studying at night, waiting for me to get visa, and it just fell through. It didn't happen, and easily it could have become a regret. Oh, I spent all these 8 months and
Yeah.
instead it became a part of my story. It's just another chapter of what happened. And I think partly because I'm thinking why there's no emotional charge to it, where I don't look at it as a failure. And I think it's just because partly it could be because of the book that I read called Surrender Experiment. And in that book, he's talking pretty much about his 40-year experiment of surrendering to life, where if something doesn't work out, he's like, okay, I guess it's not meant to happen. And now another door opens. And it's kind of being open to receive. And it's in some ways also being okay that your life won't move forward at your timeline that you want,
Mm,
or the timeline or the path you have chosen, it might actually not be the right path for you. You might think that it is, but maybe down the line something else will open up the doors. And being open to that and not being too attached to things that we are like, this is
yeah.
my, and because I think that that has allowed me to have, I don't want to say I have zero regrets, but I don't look back and be like beaten up about something that I have decided to do, not to do, this decision, that decision, or something happened to me like that example with school. It's like, okay, it happened. What, and it was so interesting for me because I was actually like, it's like 8 months. So you're actually already planning everything out, like, okay, so once I'm there, da da da, and all this kind of stuff. And then I got second rejection, and I'm like, I almost had no reaction. I'm like, okay, so what do I do now? Kind of thing. It's like instantly accept, be like, okay, that's the reality, that's the situation. What can I do? But it's not like that instantly. I have had enough of those situations where things go wrong, things don't go according to the plan, and I had to adjust and I had to go through that moment of mini grief of I so wanted it to happen and it didn't happen. And I had to kind of go through that to where I have gone through enough of those that now when it happens, I'm like, okay, got it. And if I really want it, I probably would apply again. But this time I was like, okay, I guess this is not the time. And I'm fine with
Yeah.
that. So that's probably like my piece of when it comes to like regrets, because it's a really interesting topic, because a lot of times we don't even make decision because we think about the potential regret that we might have down the line.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And I mean, honestly, like that's how like all the um society around me when I was growing up was. Like
Yeah.
that's probably like the yeah the crazy thing. But I mean, you also see they don't really evolve anywhere. Um, but as you were talking, I was thinking of something. Mm, yeah, I mean, this what you say, like making decisions and then like making them evolve, and it could be if you don't hold on onto like the one thing, it could be like it is supposed to evolve more like easily or like more apt for you in different way. And like now looking back, it's interesting, but it seems like I have mostly been taking the, like if I say it, the right decisions, um and like in a right moment, not being attached, and just like go with like what I was given. But also then like I mean, I know about myself that I'm like too determined sometimes, and that would be just like, no, like this is, there's like a bit of the ego that we need to be careful about, because this will basically, yeah, can destroy a lot, because you're like, no, like I decided this way, or this has to be this way. And this was also the a bit of the thing with the Olympics, because it was just like, well, I mean, this is the date, and like like everything needs to be like done before that, and and it just wasn't happening. And but like my ego wouldn't be able to like let it go. On the, yeah, different in the different situations, on the other hand, um I was when I was studying, I wanted to go to Argentina for a year. um and like I was so clear about Argentina from like the first day of my bachelor studies. And then I I applied, um and they didn't give me Argentina but Mexico. And I was just like, that, like, kind of, where is even Mexico? Like, I don't know anything about Mexico. But then it kind of happened, and a few people were like, I mean, you just got it, like, you could go for it. My ego was like, no, I'm applying in the next half a year for like Argentina again. But then I actually decided, okay, I go for it. It was the best decision for like many things in my life, for pretty much like the future of my life. um but yeah, it was the right moment to just like go for actually what was given there, and like not being actually like this stuck to it. And like, yeah, I have many of these moments where I can look back and be like, yeah, like because I wasn't because I was like more flexible, and I wasn't in this ego position. I was able to basically like go for what was presented there, and it's actually like from many um, points of view became like the best thing ever.
Yeah, it's it's really interesting. Because I think the interesting uh topic to touch on here could be, at least the thought that came to me was, a lot of times we think we know what's the best thing for us, but it's not always the case. And I
Yes.
think it can be, I don't want to say a challenge, but it can be interesting to find that balance between being knowing what's the best for you and then being open-minded to something new and experimenting with something new.
Yeah.
Because in my eyes, I think that the moment I think I know myself, that's when I stop growing, because I stop being curious about myself. I stop exploring myself. I stop being, let's say I say, oh, I don't want to do this, or I don't like this. And it's like, says who? Like, is that really true? Have you actually tried? Or, oh, this
Yeah.
is not for me. Okay, did you try it? And then if you tried it enough different variations or different tastes of it to know that, okay, 100%, I know for sure it's not for me. But even as I do that, I'd still explore something new about myself. I still learn something new. And I think that's where there was like, I think there was like one, I remember one clip that I had with where I was telling something along the lines of like the moment that you think you know yourself, that's when you stop growing, because you stop being curious, you stop exploring, you stop or
Yeah,
you
you
kind
stop
of put
being
yourself in a
flexible,
box.
kind of.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think it's the, for me, a lot of it is about exploring yourself, getting to know yourself. And that's where I, in some ways, I, when it comes to chasing the impossible, it's not about just chasing something that is impossible, that everybody agrees, okay, this is impossible, this is hard. It's about what is the impossible for you. For some people, it can
Yeah.
literally be, I had a friend who she got sick, and once she got healthy again, she would have this strong anxiety crossing the street. And I actually myself, I have experienced at some point, I would feel anxious crossing the street. For whatever, I think it was like just my belief or my fear was coming from the thought of everybody's judging me as I'm crossing the street, because I had so many insecurities at that time that I would literally be like, the bigger the street, the more kind of anxious I would feel, which is like, for most people, it's a ridiculous thing. Like, why would you feel anxious about that? But that's what I had. And at one point it might have been, okay, my impossible is to cross the street and not feel anxious, kind of thing, you know. And I think that's where, like, that's the important piece, is to get to, because what we a lot of times do, we now learn this thing about ourselves, which I think even like you might talk on that, because you had fear of open water, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so now if you would start, if you would like stick to that, then you wouldn't do so many things that you have done. Like,
No.
so what happened? Why did you just not stick with that?
Yeah, I will come to it, but I would also like to just like dig into what you
Okay.
just said about this. Like, yeah, it's your own impossible, because and there, like, I'm I have a bit difficulties to like um put the concept out there, because then we can like start talking about like intuition and like your true self, and like, because I'm pretty also uh I've got through this scientific education, and I'm not really having like the correct definition of that and the correct evidence, which is probably difficult. That's why it's not out there. um but it's so true, like, to come to actually like what is your impossible, which, if it's your, it's not actually that impossible. That's the interesting thing. That's what
Mm,
I meant. um
good
you know,
point.
it's like, um and but it also can be that like for a certain period of time in your life, like, this is your impossible, or this is like your true self, this is your impossible, and then like it can change also. But what is interesting, what we can like observe actually, um with scientific evidence, that children till like they are 5 or 6, they are actually in certain states, like their brains are in certain states where they, which is similar or the same as like a flow state or like the meditative state, and they're basically like connected with a lot of information, with a lot of like information from the long-term memory. We could also like um hypothesize about like other connections or like a collective consciousness, but I don't want to like really go in that, because it's not, as I've said, like, it's not really something scientifically based, so I'm always like a bit.
Yeah.
But there are ways that I have been actually exploring with clients where you can actually like get to this, like, what is your true self? And when you like are in connection with this and with your intuition, then you're pretty powerful, or you can pretty much like play and with satisfaction throughout your life. And with the water, or coming back to the water, yeah, so I have always, since I was a child, been afraid of open water. So I'm a good swimmer. I have ever always been a good swimmer in swimming pool. And like I think I was like 20, yeah, or 19, where I like for the first time like swam a bit long further out, like in a sea, but like, not really further out, probably like, I don't know, 25 meters and like that. But I would always had this very strange fear of like some monster is going to pull me down.
Mm.
And yeah, like I mean, honestly, I also didn't really, yeah, like didn't really do anything with it. Um, I mean, as for probably like we all don't do, right, with all our problems. But I wanted to do kite surfing. That was like when I was 15, I saw it somewhere and I really wanted to do that. And because I was snowboarding and skiing, I just like saw these jumps and I was like, wow, that has to be epic. Like if what I feel is amazing, like this has to be like another level. Um, and so because of that, I tried to like get over the fear of water, but like now I say um the hard way, to basically like push it away, like do as if it wasn't there, and still like try. So to try kiting, the good thing was that I had at the like the yeah the first times when I did kiting or did my first lessons at places with shallow water. So it wasn't really like the water, like it wasn't deep, so it was okay. And I got confident. Like I had really nice like learning journey, so I got like more confident, which then I would say probably gave me also more confidence on the water. Even if I know that I was already kiting um by myself. I was even teaching kiting. And when I would go on windsurf, because there I wasn't as confident, I would still get into like panic. Like when
Mm.
I would fall in the water, and you fall always when you like do the turns, because couldn't do the turns, so you basically all the time. Um, I would be just like fast, fast, fast on a board, Yeah, and then because yeah, I mean I'm determined and I'm always like seeking for better and better, so I wanted to also be better in kiting. And but I could always feel, oh, I had always like this um, yeah, tension, or like this thought in my mind, like I can't go too far from the shore. When there was like offshore wind, I would be like I would find like super strange, I wouldn't even go out. So it was a lot pressure on me, or a lot like this of like I would call it like eating my energy. And yeah, specifically like energy, and even like the curiosity of try away, um because there was like this fear, and it was like there, even if I like probably from the outside nobody would see that, but then I would like not dare to jump, because I wasn't because then if I lose my board, then I would be just like a bit freaking out. um yeah, but then I came by this one therapy, or this one method that I've been now using since then very successfully, also with my clients, where you can yeah, release this emotional load, or this even like physical tensions, or the thoughts that are surrounding situations like that. and yeah, even like exchange it for something empowering. And since then I don't have this, you know, I mean, then I started to do the like foil racing. Kite foil racing is the fastest one man um sport in yachting. So you know, like you're pretty far fast away from the shore. And yeah, now even like last year I can remember when I was in Mexico, I would be just out there and be like, oh, like there's this island, I just go up there because I can. And it's not that Mexico is without animals in the water. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's interesting how we can adapt, where like there was a point where it was like big fear, and now you're doing the pretty much like the fastest way to get away from the shore.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas before, but I have also one thing, like a bit technical. So I there's like one thing that you have to learn to stay on the same spot or go like against the wind, because otherwise, yeah, the wind pushes you down and then you end up somewhere. But you want to like end up where you started, right? So I knew that I need to learn this to like be in this certain position so badly that I became so good at it that then, well, it could be, you know, one explanation, but then, like, when I started racing, it's like very, very important skill you need to have because then you have better angle. And I really have a good angle. Like, this is very much my strength. And I'm like, it's probably because I was so fearful about like being able to stay on a spot that like now I really can do it well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even like in that example, it's like in some ways your fear was serving you
Yeah,
to become really good at that.
yeah,
Which I think it
yes,
was the same for me with basketball because I was afraid of it was just like that belief that I'm not good enough. And that led me to wake up at 5 a.m. every day before school, do my workouts. And that led me to be able to like the games became fun because I didn't feel tired. I was able to like perform and but all that came from fear initially. And I think that's where a lot of times it can be helpful to reframe how we even look at it because I can look back and I can be like in the moment, it wasn't serving me mentally, emotionally, because it was a lot of it was coming from insecurity, fear, and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, and it's something that I think Alex Hormozy is talking a lot about. A lot of times we want to have the positive emotions to drive us, but it's not always positive. Sometimes it's negative, and even though it doesn't feel good, but for me in that situation, it was helping. I got better. It
yeah,
couldn't serve me long term, but it was working then, and it got me to a really good place,
yeah,
like really good place. Which I think if I didn't have that fear, I probably wouldn't have gone that far in my skill set.
yeah,
So it's interesting how sometimes the fear, even though it's there, but it can actually serve us where we become better than we would initially, or if we didn't have it. Um, I also wanted to touch a bit more on the expectations or pretty much like people around us. Because I think a lot of times, even like in your example of your story, it's like you're not in many ways understood. It's like people in some ways, especially when they might be like thinking smaller than you are, they want to fit you in the box because that's the only thing that they know. It's like no judgment on them, it's just what they know. And they want to like protect you, they want you to be safe and all this kind of stuff. So that's why they're like, let's just stick to this box. But as that happens, it can be frustrating because then you can feel misunderstood. You can feel like something's wrong with you, or be like that's what I had, where I would be like, why am I like this? Why do I want to like study all this like self development stuff and go to like different country to learn and all that? While everybody else, they seem fine with where they are, with what they do, but it's like I'm always on this chase, and uh, and that's where I think it's and another thing is that expectation, which I think actually we might touch on this I think it's more important because it's something that I hear a lot, is that expectation that others should support us on our pursuit. We kind of have this feeling that in some ways I expect others to support me in whatever it is that I'm pursuing. How to navigate that when you don't get that support that you would initially want to get?
Yeah, this one is a tricky one, because there is like a certain point where we like most of us seek some like support or like approval, let's say.
Mm.
um and when it's not there, then you're like, then you feel like, yeah, why am I even doing it? Like it could like come to all these yeah, questioning yourself, or like, yeah, then probably even like the what you said, like the possible regret that could come. um there basically you need to find the right people. And also, I know that I wouldn't, so often, or I think mostly, I come up by people, or I'm perceived by people as like, oh, you like suddenly came up with this idea and it's already happening. But it's not true. Like there has been the, because I don't talk about it, because it's also like I know I want to do it. I know it's I kind of know it's going to happen. Or even I'm not sure if it's going to happen. By now, after all the years, I know like, well, it's going to happen. So there's like I don't need to go through this period of doubts, because it's anyway going to happen. Like it's been already decided. Um, but and if you have someone who like is on the same level and like supports you and or like understand it, like it's not in like another box, but it's like in your box, let's say, then it's amazing. But like you shouldn't talk too much, and you shouldn't talk to the wrong people, because, and specifically if, and the thing is at the beginning specifically, you probably like doubting and questioning. And if you are in this like doubting, questioning, bit of a fearful state, um you're also projecting it. So basically, you are probably surrounded with people. And especially if you want to, like, if you have been in this one thing and you want to get out of it, you're surrounded in this one thing with the same people. Like, it's not if you want to get out of it, the people will be different. So they will probably, like, you will project probably some fears on them, and they will mirror it to you back, which would like limit you. Um, so you need to like either not talk or talk to the right people that you know that has achieved something in that way, or that you know that has come out of the comfort zone often, or that have like experienced things like that. Because otherwise, yeah, otherwise it can be limiting. And the thing is, like in my experience, um it's just kind of needed to have these people to tell you, like, yeah, you can do it, or like, yeah, just go for it. Like it doesn't really need to be more often.
Yeah, it's it's something that I feel like I have a lot to say on that topic, because it's something that um in some ways, let's say with that expectations can be so tricky, because when we have them, they can at some point start to control us or what we do. I specifically remember the moment when I was listening to Andy Purcell podcast, where he said he had exactly this question, and his answer was so good. I still remember it. He was like, well, if in that scenario that he was talking about, he was like, well, if you say that, let's say you want to lose weight, and you now expect others to support you, but you have tried it like 10 times and you have failed, you can't expect others to believe in you because you haven't given them the proof to believe in you. And it doesn't mean that they shouldn't believe in you unless there's a proof, but it's also understanding that if you have tried it, like maybe first 3 times they actually were supportive, but then they see like, okay, like we're at this again, and they kind of start to now go also into that pattern. And so in some ways it's like when we, especially when, and it's especially true with things that those people might not even understand. A good example is me doing my half marathons and my parents. So when I trained for my first one, they're like, why do you have to do this? It's unhealthy, and like it gonna damage your health, and it's not good for your knees, and all the
Yeah.
list of things. So they didn't necessarily support that. But at the same time, it didn't really stop me from doing it. But then once I have done, I think after I did the third half marathon, I usually send picture to, like, we have family chat, and my mom was like, congratulations, what's next? so so like a lot of times it takes people time to catch up or be like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here, and also for them to accept that I won't be able to change that. Like I won't be, because initially, and they wanted all good. Like it's nothing on them or me judging them or criticizing them. It's they wanted me to be safe. They didn't want me to go get injured or anything like that. They had good intentions. So it's also like when you have people not supporting you, address or thinking on like what's their intention and what they're saying. Are they actually trying to stop me, or they try to help me, but they help with the tools that they just know. They might
Yeah.
not know any other tools. And I do agree with you about sharing. And I have good example with that. They had a conversation with friends about it where I said them that I'm not sharing big stuff with others. And they're like, why? And in that moment when we had conversation, I didn't have the answer to that. But then the next day, what happened was my brother came in my room, and I was like, I'm gonna go for a run. And he doesn't care. Like, but that's when I understood. Oh, so when it comes to short term, what I did in that situation, I told him I'm going to run to keep myself accountable because I want to be a person of integrity. So if I'm going to tell you I'm going to do something, now I have to go and do it. So that it was me trying to help me to go for a run, which I didn't want to do. Um, but so that's where I was like, oh, I understand why it makes sense to share some of the short term stuff. At least in that moment, it was completely selfishly for me to keep myself accountable.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like he would come in like hour later, did you go for a run? Like he doesn't care. Um, but there's also a situation where I can ask somebody to keep me accountable for something. Um, but then when it comes to big goals, there's few things that I have learned. One, not everybody will understand them, or they'll be like, why you need that? Which is fine. That's like those are my goals, not their goals. Then second is they might not even be able to help me get there. Which for the most part, if somebody is there, they're more likely to be able to help you get there. Um, so it also doesn't make sense to share with somebody if I know based on the relationship that we have or where they are, they might not actually help me to get there. And third one was, for the most part, with big goals, most people will forget. Like, especially when they're not in close contact with you, it's not like they're gonna check in. Rarely somebody does that, where you tell them this big goal and they check in, like, how's your progress going? Unless you pay them. Like, it's different when you like you have a coach or somebody, who to keep you accountable. But it's rarely the case. And that's when I understood. I was like, oh, so this is why I'm not doing it. And it wasn't because I'm afraid to share my big goals. It's like I don't see the point in sharing, because you can have, like, to your point, that backlash of like, oh, you're da da da, like, or big one is like, when will be enough for you, or all this kind of stuff. um and and that's where for me it's distinguishing and also looking, kind of analyzing the person, because I have some people in my life who they have nowhere near, like, as like determined or like to kind of goal driven as I am, but they get me as I am and I get them as they are, and we don't try to change each other. Like my closest friend is like a really good example. She's not like me. She's literally the opposite of me. She would like she would join me for like my workouts when I was training for Ironman, and midway the workout, she's like, "I'm not doing Ironman. I don't need to do this." Like, so she's not into that. But at the same time, I'm not trying to make her like me because that's not her. I'm trying to support her in the way she is. She's trying to support me in the way I am. But I think it's rare to find that because a lot of times we try to make others the way we are, or we try to connect with similarities instead of, oh, you can compliment me with this. When I start to go more intense, you can actually come in and be like, listen, let's go and like just do nothing, you know, or just like spend time with like not being like productive all the time.
Yeah.
And it's been really helpful for me, but it's not always gonna work because we try to push each other on each other instead of being like, oh, you want to do this? That's fine because that's you. Um, so it's a that's a topic, as you can see, is I've been thinking a lot about it, and I've been like even like pondering a lot on it because it's something that I think it's inevitable. Like we do need, to some extent, we do need support. Even to what you said, like somebody telling you that you got it, or even like, why not think bigger? Is that all you want to do? Like, why not look at the like bigger?
This is interesting what you say, right? Because like I feel, and again, like I have like this, yeah, I wouldn't really think of how big I think. It
Hmm.
would just naturally come.
Yeah.
And but then yeah, it actually came, and I would be always like, oh, suddenly I am much further behind than what I have even like thought of, like what I have even thought was impossible. So like I'm much further behind what I felt impossible at the beginning. But yeah, it's interesting. Like nobody would have had ever like asked me this. Like, why don't think bigger? Would be an interesting question if I just like surround myself with people like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
think it's
um, but yeah, it would be mostly like more myself going for like, oh, what is like what about this? Like this sounds exciting. Let's try it. Yeah, but yeah, very cool what you say about your friend. Like I have a similar friend, and there we um also like try to support each other. Even if I thought right now when you were describing it, like I wanted to make her to train with me.
yeah, and I
Which
did
to a
exactly
certain
the same.
amount happened. But by now I'm like, yeah, let's do like surfing. Let's search for some like surfing spots so that we like get her also satisfied for like what she is. Yeah, but it's really actually, yeah, nice and rare to have people like that. And honestly, it can be just like one person,
Yeah.
and yeah. But yeah, then at a certain point, I think you mentioned it a bit. It um yeah, it can be a bit like lonely or something, because like you have gonna reach like this next levels, and then you're like at the moment like not really surrounded with the same, yeah, or specifically, yeah, having always in mind this like, oh, like there's something new that I could do, and it's something like very exciting for me but not for the most of the people. So I'm very happy when I like see more people around me thinking that way, because honestly, like in a bigger sense, um I I like literally like love it doing it this way. But it's also nice to have like others to be able to like share it with, because at some point, like I have always been doing it for myself and for like my own curiosity, but it's also like nice to be able to like share it, because then yeah, sometimes you basically like come into this, either people like judge you because they or judge you in a sense of like they cannot understand, so they try to like put you into their category and you just don't fit. um yeah, which I have realized probably in the past like year or two would lead towards, I mean, it's my reality. It's nothing special, but it's special for like most of the people around, or like many people around. Um, and so like I've realized I would be like not really open about it, or it would be like difficult for me to yeah talk about things that I like do or I have achieved. Mm, yeah, till I realized, and actually, you know why? There were
Mhm.
also many times thoughts of like, okay, I have achieved enough. I need to leave some stuff to the others. Or like, yeah, basically this thought would be there. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm like this, and I'm just like getting all these things. Um, and not that it was easy, yeah, that's also not true. But at the same time, it would be like, yeah, like I need to leave it for the others too. Till I came actually to a point where I'm like, no, like I can own it, and it could be, um, yeah, yeah. I didn't want to let the other people feel like less or something, and I wanted to connect with them, right? So I would, as I can do so many things, I would also, but very unconsciously. It's like what I in the past years would come to that, like getting more conscious that I would just like, let's say, play my role in this part of the world or place, and like the other role that because I could, and I would like put aside all the other things that I can. But yeah, then basically probably coming to, I can think even bigger and be actually the inspiration for others, because that's how why I have always been like going for these challenges, if we call it that way, because I'm like curious about it. I find it really amazing that how much is possible. um yeah.
Uh, I have quite a few things to touch on here. First one, it really came to me as a thought as you were speaking, like as about your friend, because that's something that I also did. I tried to, and we discussed. I came home after like Tony Robbins event, and we literally sat in cafe. Both had our notebooks open. We were like writing stuff down, and we were there for like few hours. And that's when we touched on our friendship because we have known each other for I think 11 or 12 years, and we were trying to understand how did our friendship stay alive because we're so different. And we went through there was a phase, especially when I was in my coaching phase, like just fresh at coaching, where I was, and it's so interesting how like, and I see that in some of my friends who are like now coaches as well, that they're like kind of, instead of having conversation with them, they're now trying to like fix you or try to like, like do the coaching on you. Um, and I was kind of in that place, or like I remember she said that she remembers how I was like so into like 5 a.m.s that she wanted to do nothing with it, but I wasn't in a space where I was like, oh, okay, cool. I was like 5 a.m. kind of thing. And she said it was kind of like annoying, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. Looking back, that it could be annoying if it's not your thing. And the thought that came to me is that um, we we try to make through those things, we try to make the other person like us because we want to feel understood, we want to feel accepted, but it's not always the case that they need to be like we for us to feel understood or feel connected. It's
Yeah.
just like accepting each other as we are and be like, oh, cool. So this is what you do. I will try to support you in that. This is what you do. I'll try to support you in that instead of trying now to change each other so that we fit each other's like mental images of what we want them to be. But And with loneliness, that's something that I think it's really important topic. And I have, especially I think like this year, I think I see a lot of, and it's something that I think is not talked to enough about when it comes to growth development, is that at some point, if you're the one who is constantly working yourself, literally like full time, you now start to outgrow people. And it can be a lonely, sad place to be. And there's also some grief around it where you see that you outgrow the people. They're not interested to keep up with you. They're happy where they are. And you can do nothing about it. And it's learning to accept that it is what it is. And I need to do my thing instead of like staying where I am. And it's again not talking down on those people. It's just that's
Yeah.
their reality. That's what they want. You want something different. Um, and and I think that's where you it's like it's kind of going through that phase of loneliness, then also feeling like, am I doing the right thing? And also grief with letting go some of those like friendships or some of those connections, or understanding that they might not, because I think my my challenge has been to let go, not necessarily the relationships where they are now, but the potential of them that I see. Because letting go of them where they are now, it's like, yeah, actually it's not working for me. But then I think about potential where that like friendship relationship where that could go, and I find it hard to let that go because I see potential. I always see potential in like anybody that I talk to, or even like that relationship that I have with the person. I see potential. But then it's like, okay, like this relationship, this friendship, it's not serving me right now, and I don't know how long it's gonna be, because I'm not planning to stop. I'm moving forward. And that's where like I literally I have allowed myself to go through moments of grief where I'm like, okay, so this doesn't feel good, that I want to allow myself to feel bad about it, because it's not easy. It's like part of you dies, or part of the vision that you had for like the friendship or relationship or whatever, it's kind of dying off, and you're like, okay, this is not going to happen, at least now. And it's time to kind of step into that. One vision that came to me once when I was in gym was, so you have these like-minded people. And a lot of times, what we do, we are all climbing the mountain, but we don't see each other. So we're climbing at the same time, and we will meet at the top, and it's like, hey! But as you're climbing it, you're so focused on the climb that you might not see somebody who is next to you, because they're also busy climbing. They're busy focusing on that, putting one step in front of the other to get to that peak. And that is one thought that has given me a lot of comfort of being like, okay, if I feel lonely right now, one is I can go and look out for like-minded people, because as you level up yourself, you will have to level up your circles as well. It's
Yeah.
inevitable.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but because I had this fear, I had really, and it's something that I'm still kind of working. I think I'm now like at the end of working through that, where I would have this fear of, and I think it also ties to what you talked about, kind of not, in some ways, not triggering others or not making others feel bad. I would feel like I have to intentionally slow down my progress so that others can potentially keep up with me. And because I didn't want to outgrow them to the level where, one, we can't relate to each other, but also they can't keep up with me, and now I'm alone, kind of thing. But then I understood in the last like 1 or 2 years that it's actually not really serving me or them, because I'm kind of like in the middle of just like trying to slow down something that I don't really want to slow down. Um, and it's really interesting navigating that, and also attachments, all that comes into place, because it seems like, to all the stuff that we have been talking about, oh, easier said than done, because it is true, there's all emotions, beliefs, everything involved. But that's where I think, well, I would have a question for you of, how do you navigate that? How do you navigate outgrowing people, or
Yeah.
not being
Yeah.
as relatable to them
Yeah.
anymore?
So I have had a very hard times, I would say, in a sense of, oh no, so I would say like my first, yeah, I don't know, till I was probably like 24, like all my studies and stuff. and I would also go through during my high school for a few months on like a exchange. um I would be like super clear. I mean, like I wouldn't feel connected in this like town where I grew up at all, and even like not really a Czech Republic. So like I had like much different like views and goals. So it was super clear to me like where I'm going, and that like things are going to be changing, and that they're like the people around me will be changing. Mm, and so there I was more basically like focused on this progress, even if I have always been surrounded by very great people, like anywhere I would go, which I also have to mention. Uh, but then I guess like, and I'm a very loyal person, which makes it kind of difficult. But um, but like I wouldn't see, because I mean I would be also, yeah, moving to different places. Mm, so you basically like have to let go of people, but at the same time, really, like I would always at a new place again, like be surrounded by really amazing people. Um, but then like I'm very loyal, so I'm like, oh, I have been a lot, but in a sense that it would be, as you say, probably like a bit limiting, because I would be like, well, even sometimes, when like people has like supported or help you in certain things, and you're like, um I would never, like, till like probably 1 or 2 years, I would never admit this, like, oh, I have to let him go. And I mean, even if I have like we have moved to other places, even like different countries and continents. I still have like a lot of contacts with most of like my very close friends from like very different parts. um but then in past 2 years probably, I realized, yeah, there are probably people that are at like certain amount of time around you, and then not, which I couldn't understand. I was just like, but I mean, like, because of this like loyalty thing, and like because for example it's been, and specifically it seems to be people that has like made like a real change in your life. mm, and that would be for me like I mean, that there I'm like really determined too, and I'm like, no, like I'm not going to let this down. And yeah, it was like for sure 1 or 2 relationships, and like very good friendships, where I would be just like, but I mean, how could I let this person down in my point of view, not go but down. And like, why should this person, yeah. But um now and then I have heard this like from different parts, that yeah, sometimes like some people are for a certain time in your life and then they are not. And then I like try to yeah, accept this. And basically, yeah, basically like if you get probably like attached a lot, it's much more difficult, right? Like um yeah,
And if you're
as you
loyal, like
say,
that's a strong one.
yeah,
Loyalty.
as you say, like and sometimes often it can be like very uh complex or complicated, because you get, I mean, I wouldn't have been where I am if those people weren't there.
Yep.
Like, not like, and it was like really great. Yeah, it was a really great way to get there. And then I just wouldn't like, I didn't want to be this, but like, oh, I have like taken this and then bye.
Yep. Yep.
So like I did have like I didn't want to accept something like that.
Yeah. Or now you feel like you're too good for them.
What do you say? Yeah, yeah, too. But it's interesting, right? Because like when you say that, yeah. Um, so from my point of view, it wouldn't have need to end up like that, but it could be they have felt, and that then becomes tricky. Like when you said that now, it could be they have felt like I'm too good for them.
But then, like, do you feel like the reason I'm asking this is because I understood it about myself. I actually subconsciously thought that I'm better because my ego was like, well, I'm doing more and I'm blah, 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 and I see all the things that they don't see, or like, because there's a lot that comes with there's a lot that comes with you leveling up, you having higher level of like awareness, and things like that, where I would be able to see in what ways I actually am better, but that's like objectively better. But then I would in some ways project that onto them unknowingly in the way I would communicate, or stuff like that, where I would see how, and I have had some people, and now I'm not in that place. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm kind of like, what has been working for me is focusing on them instead of now, because like if I would have to go through a list of things that I am doing or that I'm focusing on, I can understand how people can feel intimidated, especially if it's not the life that they want, and they now start to feel like, oh, I'm doing so little or I'm not doing anything. But another thing that people don't think about is what comes with living that kind of life. It's a lot of sacrifices. It's really tiring. It's not easy. Um, but what I understood is that and I think it was really true in uni. I think I remember thinking about it where I literally felt like, oh, I'm too good to like, or like too advanced to spend time with people there, because they're like, they haven't put the work in themselves, or I can see that they haven't done like much self development, all this kind of stuff. So I didn't have any compassion towards them or meet them where they're at. That's where I was. And then when I understood it, I was like, oh, so, and I think that was I can't say mini breakthrough. I remember it was quite powerful because what I was actually seeking was to feel understood or feel accepted. Because like I would always have the feedback, or the reality the way it was like, I'm different or I don't fit in kind of thing. Or because most people, they would call me crazy. They still do when they hear about stuff that do, or they're like, oh, you're crazy. And at that point, I thought something's wrong with me. Now I'm like, oh, thank you, kind of taking it as a as a compliment. But it took me time to get there. And the one thought that I had, it was like a light bulb moment for me. I was like, instead of trying to be understood, I'm gonna focus on understanding them and focusing on them. And that was one thing that has helped me to meet people where they're at. There are moments when I feel a bit, I don't even want to say I feel lonely, because my energy is focused on them and then on getting me better. But that was something that I know for me, that was affecting me the way I would, or people would feel. I don't know, they might still feel intimidated. I don't try to intimidate people, or don't do it consciously, or I don't think I'm at the level where my ego is at the place of like, I'm doing like kind of all this work and like I need acknowledgement for that because I don't feel good enough within myself. um but that's kind of like my comment there, because it's something that I realized in myself, because I was thinking like, how can you still relate to people, because I do want to relate to all people that I meet for the most part, but it's hard to relate when like your goals are here and they're here. um but I don't want to look down on them, or I don't want to feel them like I'm looking down on them. I actually want to like acknowledge them and being like you're doing a great job, like with whatever you're doing with life that you have, as long as you're happy, that's what matters. But I wasn't in that place. I felt like everybody must, you know. But that's where I was.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's interesting
But
because
it's
like,
complex to
for
navigate
example,
that.
like but I basically lately, like when you were talking, I was just like, well, I've actually had really a lot of kind of luck, because I have also like few of my like really close friends speak several languages. So we basically like it's something super normal that we like switch from one to the other and like, oh, or to another one. And like once I told it to my friend who is like this super super powerful woman working in tech, and she'd be like, "Oh, that's strange." And I'm like, "No, it's not." Oh, I was talking about it. I was doing this with a client, and I was like, "Oh, that's strange." I'm like, "No, like with my friends, I do four." Like, you know. So it's nice. So, I mean, yeah, I've been basically like super lucky to have actually, yeah, certain levels there, which would be like very very normal. But yeah, like lately I just came to to a point where I'm like, honestly, without like not putting any ego into anything, like there are so many things that like I have accomplished and they are now like part of myself, and I would just um admire it to like be surrounded by this by people like that, because I have spent too much time to not too much time, but I have spent a lot of time to actually like me putting myself into some category, um, or like as you say, trying to like understand others and like help them, or seeing for them the potential, or like helping them like with their goals. But I'm like, honestly, it's nice, all of that, but also like I would wish to be surrounded by these like-minded people, and then well, I see there when there's like just this humbleness, uh like I see there an incredible like potential to like put it into even like another like levels.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's important. You're bringing up important points to also find time, not even find time, but just like be proud of yourself. You don't always have to downplay, or like not even always, like you shouldn't downplay all the stuff that you have accomplished just because it might intimidate others. It doesn't mean that you're now like putting it in their face, but, but it's also like, yeah, that's what you did. You should feel
yeah,
proud because getting to certain level of accomplishments, whether they're personal, professional, whatever, it takes it takes time, it takes sacrifices, it takes intention, and it's not easy. I remember there was when I was in uni, we like you studied psychology as well, so we had statistics. Nobody goes to psychology to study statistics, but it's part of it. It's like it's science, and and I was studying it in English, which like science language in English is not like the language that you speak. It's completely different. The sentence structure is different. So I initially struggled even to adjust to like just the way it was written or even to read it. And I was not even talking about math or statistics. It's like you're learning new language. And I remember I spent at least 40 hours just preparing for that one exam. And I would go to meet my lecturer at least 4 times. So it was pretty much like it became like a full-time job just getting ready for that exam. And usually that exam has the lowest marks, and I had like 93%, which is like really high. And I remember there was one of my course mates that I was helping. Like I was teaching him, I was helping him with understanding the theory, and he was like, "Oh, or like there was another. I don't remember who exactly said that, but I remember I read the message of. It was like I think it was like in a group that we were in. They were like, "Oh, I wish I could be like you," and I'm like, I I get it, but I don't know you want that because you would have no free time to do stuff that you would want to do because most of that time is allocated towards doing the work, or I would have to work on the side as well. So I'd be working, I would studying extra just so I can keep up, not even keep up, but get to the level that I would want to get with understanding stuff. And then self development on top of it, or trying to do like some kind of side hustles or something. So there was a lot that I was doing, and it's something that I think a lot of the times we see online all these people that are success, that are like really accomplished, and everybody wants the result, but not everybody wants to do the work that requires that result. And for the most part, nobody really tells you how much of that work it is, not just in hours, but also in the emotions and mental. Like it's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's easy to be like, oh, I would want to have the same thing, but it's like, okay, I'm fine with that, but are you willing to pay the price? Because the price is like you have to want it to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, which is interesting because also if you say sacrifices, I have always mostly been able to like put even like scientific methods if we talk about the studies, which is you put psychological states into math, basically into numbers, and then you have like all these different mathematic mm, formulas on it, and yeah, it was basically pretty crazy. Um, but even that, I was able to put into. I mean, I really liked the logic behind it, but it was it was a bit crazy, and specifically the amount of it. But I would always been able to, yeah, like turn it around and make it exciting. And honestly, like sometimes I'm like, why? Sometimes I just like don't. I think it's also easier to not talk about things because then people like can't tell you these like super tiny things that are just like I've never thought about that because like probably a year or two ago, a really good friend who is really like very nice person and who actually does also the same sports and like in these sports you really need to it's like kiting it's basically a lifestyle because you spend a lot of time with
Mhm.
it. um he would be like, yeah, you have just you have been sacrificing so much, and I'm like, have never thought about like have never thought about the word, like has never been there, even if of course as you say I have been swimming somewhere in the ocean because my kite fell in the water, and I somebody had to come and rescue me. And I would be like, if it happens already the fifth time in a day, then it's just like you just there in the water crying. I've been there many times, and I'm like, what am I even like doing here? I'm attempting here, and but at the same time there's still like so much fun about it, and now like so happy I did that because now I'm like the yeah the satisfaction the joy that is around it is just amazing. But yeah, there's a very and there's like this like tiny edge that you always need to find between like yeah it is sacrifice in a sense, but like not labeling it that way. But for sure, like honestly, I have realized probably when I started training for the Olympics, I got this coach, and I he would be always telling me I'm doing too much. I'm like, no, now I'm taking it seriously. No, even if I was doing much less than I would have been doing because he was saying. And so I came to this like also from like other places, which has always been like this thought of mine. How do how do people do it that are like very successful in sports, for example, and do it like very elegant, nice way, and never like pretty much never are injured. So like these two things brought me to okay, like there has to be like some like easy way to get there. Um, and I mean, yeah, I would have been like always very proactive. And so I have started to be discovering, and which is interesting when we talk about the impossible. For me, it seems to be the most impossible thing in the world to do nothing. Literally. Like, I could more easily learn 3 other languages than that. Um, but it made me like realize how, and I don't think I wouldn't say it would be like down talking, but I wouldn't call what I do like sacrifice. So, like I would say in my point of view, it always went very fast.
Yeah, I think
But
sacrifice might not be the right word because I think once you're
no,
in it, it doesn't
yeah,
feel like it's a sacrifice. Like you
yeah,
don't perceive it as that because you're just doing what
yeah,
you need to do to get the goal.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm just like saying
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sometimes it can come
Yeah,
and
it's a
it's
really
just
good
like, what?
point.
What are you talking about?
Because it's something that I was even like in
Mm,
the conversation we had on the episode on like my half Ironman journey. There was a question of like what were some of the things that I need to sacrifice, and that's literally my answer. I'm like, I don't think I needed I don't think I sacrificed anything. I just was more like approaching it from perspective of okay, what do I need to focus on, what do I need to do, or what do I need to remove. But it wasn't like I felt like I'm sacrificing. So that's actually a really good point because and I think it also it brought me a thought that it might actually feel it might look like sacrifice from the side of somebody who might not understand your drive or how dedicated you are towards that goal.
yeah,
For them it might feel like sacrifice, or you're sacrificing this and that. For you, as you're in it, it doesn't feel like sacrifice.
no,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's really
yeah,
interesting.
but yeah, totally. And so like with this like doing nothing concept, if I call
Yeah,
it now
yeah.
like that, I have started to realize that people literally do like, yeah, don't do anything, like do nothing. And of course, you need to do something if you like want to reach something or achieve something. And of course, because I mean, I've been taught many times, like, oh, you're doing so much. I'm like, not really. Like, yeah, but not really. Like, and specifically, like, I do it because like it gives me a lot of satisfaction. But yeah, like I wouldn't go for a beer every evening, or like I wouldn't get drunk or like I wouldn't go for, yeah. I mean, and sometimes it's cool, but like many people tend to yeah, or like I wouldn't, honestly, I wouldn't be even like having a time to see movies or something like that. But like, I wouldn't also be interested in that either. And so, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, like if people are like doing that, then or like my life would be just more like and I would know what I do and when, and it would be like very structured and planned.
Have you tried doing I don't think that doing nothing is the best way to describe because like I actually know what you're talking about because I would be exactly the same. If it wasn't productive, I would be like, "Oh, I can't be doing that. I have to do something that's like kind of towards like growth or stuff like
Yeah.
that." And I think what really helped me was when I met a friend of mine and and he would have like a lot of qualities and a lot of thoughts and a lot of like accomplishments that I would aspire to have. And he wouldn't do anything. Let's say like either play like games or like do something that is not like productive. And and I remember we were talking about it and he said something along the lines of like you need to you need to have space. You need to give yourself space to recover so that you can get back better, get back better. But at the time I was like I wasn't fully it wasn't fully clicking because I'm like it doesn't make sense. Like just you just need to like do more kind of thing. And it's really interesting to navigate that because I think it started with me. Like I'm working at like one company where they're pretty much like you come up with your life roles, and then within each role you write the goals. And one of them, I remember like specifically that question. He called me out, and he's like, "What are your roles?" And I read them through, and I didn't mention sister, daughter, friend. as roles. I was just like, oh, I'm this kind of like. Um, and then he was like, well, do you have any siblings? I'm like, yeah. Do you have parents? Are your parents still alive? I'm like, yeah. Um, and did the same thing like with like friends. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, set some goals there as well. And I was, because I was like, yeah, initially when I was writing it, I got it. Like, I need to focus on this. But then once I did that, I was like, okay, whenever I'm going home, I must be present. I can't be working. I can't be just like doing something on the side all the time. I actually have to be present, even if it's just like part of the day. But even now, when I went home for Christmas, whenever when we'd go like visit like grandma and stuff like that, I have to be present there. I can't be working. I can't be just like trying to do something on the phone. I actually have to be present. And I have gotten so much out of it, that before I would see it as, oh, I don't I wouldn't even, for Christmas I might go home, but I wouldn't go as often as I have gone, because I would be like, well, I need to focus, I need to work. And now I'm seeing how much it can actually, because every time I go, it's so interesting. It's like my nervous system regulates itself. I become much more calmer. I feel less kind of agitated. And then by the time I'm back, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to work, kind of thing. But it took me a long time to even see that way or be okay with, you know what, I'm gonna take this evening off. Or even going to
Yeah.
basketball, I would be like, oh, it's not productive. Like, and it's taking up like 2 evenings of my week instead of like doing calls with clients or doing some work. Like, I can't do that. Now I'm like, listen, you need to do something that you love. It doesn't have to be productive, which is what I got in. I recently read a book, The Art of Impossible, and he was talking there about finding things that get you in a flow that doesn't necessarily have to be um, productive, but they're just something that helps you to. When I play basketball, I don't think about work, I don't think about anything. I'm just having fun. And it's been really helpful for me to be able to refocus. But I can so relate to what you're talking about with like that doing nothing, where I would be like, so when do I
Yeah.
do something?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I totally admit I would be, I was like that. And honestly, when I look back now, specifically like probably in the past 2 years, I, uh, interesting was how, for example, in a training, how much better I got. Like I literally cut off 70%
Oh
of
wow.
the time on the water. And you know what was the most difficult thing is I love it. It's
Mm,
just like it's something that like of course is like the training and stuff, but I love it. It just brings you into an incredible state of body and mind, and I just
yeah.
love it. Um but of course there would be things like, oh, I have this like bit of tendonitis because like I'm pulling the kite, and of course this makes you perform less, right? And so like I cut it off. My performance went up exponentially, and I was just like,
Mhm.
okay. Okay. And it makes so much sense. In terms of like, I always say, like, we have like the 100% of energy. Now I think plus something more probably, in a, like, in a situation of the need. But then, like, if you, I don't know, think too much about different things, so you're not present. If you're like have some emotions, so you're again like less
Mm,
present. Then there can be like other stuff, or you haven't slept well, or you have like over the actual energy or focus, the same thing. You put into the activity is not at 100%, right? So you need so much this regeneration, and there's like a great research on it lately, where like the yeah, regeneration is so important, and like good sleep, and also like this. What is interesting is these like phases in between. So you learn something, or you just like train or something, or you read, and then you need actually a time and a mental state, or like less the time than the mental state, um to for your body and mind to incorporate it actually. And this is like, yeah, when you don't have it, you don't save it, so it's there a bit but not really. But like if you find out these like right moments of how much do I train, how much do I work so that it's like very effective, and how much do I rest, regenerate, so it can get into actually my system, then it's actually what you want to have, like effective. But then I realized that it's like what I was for sure doing a long time in my life is to exhaust myself, to
Mm.
basically just like be doing rather than like not, because like not would be like not not productive. So meaning like why, like if you're not productive, so like what? um but like seeing, like being so and you have to be like super mindful and super open to yourself and like admit, and I literally like admitted, yeah, I mean, I used to do all these things, and I mean, it was successful. I also achieved a lot in a very short time, but what if it could go even faster, or what if it could go like different, or simply or easier? And like then be actually like, yeah, I mean, I did do all this. I could be it is also, it's not the best approach. And then realizing that it actually can be different. And they're sorry, they're just like foiling the spirited ID is the best like teacher at it, because there you literally have to be like at the same time, and like it's like it does make sense if I say it, but at the same time you need to be like super relaxed and super like active and energetic, and actually like of course certain muscles have to be tense and prepared for the action, but at the same time literally like super relaxed, because you need to like receive all the information of the wind, of the border, like how it behaves. And if you're like not as flexible, then you cannot perform the best. And they're like, I know the feeling, and I know that then I perform the best from that. And so like, yeah, it's nice for me to have it, because now I can like, I know that it's good to like implement it into like any parts of the life.
Is this related to the Wu Wei that you, by the way, like you sent me over, anybody listening, you sent me over really interesting resource on that. I will also put it in show notes, anybody who wants to check it out, about this interesting concept called Wu Wei.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, well, honestly, if as we have been talking about, like, is it even worthy to like do all this preparation for the Olympics? It was for sure, because, as I say, like yeah, got to a level where I can actually like feel this like very optimal, if we see it from a scientific point of view, way of like the functioning of your body and mind. And so like being exactly like in this like interplay between like being super relaxed and flexible and active. um and yeah, what you say, the Wu Wei, I because I'm not just the like athlete, but also I think a lot, which is sometimes not as good for the athletic performance. But then I was like, oh, like how does it work? And can we like find some evidence in it and about it in science? And then I actually like went deeper, deeper into like more like the philosophical way, how it could like been evolving. And there of course we talk about flow, like, or like mindfulness, or like being in here in a present moment. And like flow, basically everything is happening automatically without the feeling of time, which we can use at any activity of our life. Doesn't have to be just like sports or like playing music instrument, it can be anything. um, and then I went through. So me and my friend are actually writing a book on it. Um, and she has studied religion studies, so like comparative religion studies, and so we went like through different philosophies and religions. And in Taoism, there's this concept Wu Wei, what you mentioned, um, which actually talks like Wu Wei is like this like non-action. So like, and if you read Tao Te Ching, which is the book like of Taoism, it's like sharpened, or it's like shows extremes, and so it kind of like sharpens the in between,
Hmm.
because on one way it's on one side it tells you like, yeah, you should be doing nothing, but on the other side you should be also like attempting to do your best and do like everything, and having goal, but actually not having a goal, like striving for the best but not striving. And you're at the beginning, you're like, probably right now you're like, okay, what is she talking about? um and it's like it takes
It's like
time.
striving without striving.
Yeah, exactly. And like it takes the time to understand it. It's nice that like exactly what I've just described with foiling, that like there the feeling is there, which also brought me to like like more people should do that. For example, like e-foiling, because there you can have an incredible like feeling that you connect to it. You can probably basically within an hour be able to like stand on it. Um, but yeah, and it's interesting because like the more I got into it, or like the more I read about it, I start to like understand that I actually also have been navigating on that way throughout my life. Because it would be what you said, this like um you concentrate on the baby steps, but once in a while you like look up to the bigger goal, and so you're like in between this, or you're in between the like relaxation and activation. um and so actually, like, I don't know, but in a sense of connecting them, and I know it works, even if it doesn't really make sense, but like connecting the extremes can lead you to like very um optimal and effective way of like being, or like functioning of your being.
Yeah, and I think we need both. That's kind of the a lot of times it even I think we end up going one or the other. So you go extreme into like do and then you're burnt out and you're like, okay, now I rest. It's like how do you combine the both? Because once you combine them and it is experimentation until you find the right balance. I'm still learning to rest. I am way better than I was, and at this point I didn't feel guilty when I'm resting, which I did
Yeah,
before. I would be like, "Oh, I need to do something. I feel bad." Now I'm like, "Okay, listen." Like, not even listen. It's just like, "Okay, I feel like I need rest. I'm gonna take a few hours, do what I want, or I feel like doing this. Like,
yeah,
let's make sure I do that." Instead of like, oh no, you need to get back to work, like you're not where you want to be yet, kind of thing. Like it's not helping.
yeah.
But that's where I was, and finding balance between the two, it's an experiment. Do you have any advice in like finding that balance, or how to even start looking for it, or how to incorporate?
So what you said, I really liked one friend told me actually lately, like, it's so easy to be in an extreme.
Yeah.
It is, because everything is clear. Like
Mm, yeah.
everything is just clear. Like you don't need to think about a lot. Like it's defined very, very clearly. Um, well, I don't have it here. I have it in a house in Italy, but I found yeah, I found out that's why I like kind of take a bit to Taoism, because they say like from nothing everything has like arose. So if we would say like, okay, like there was nothing at first, and then like everything has started from nothing, so everything is one. which like makes me understand better this concept of the balance between the extremes. So I, right now I, so I see it a bit of like, so here there's like nothing and then like everything evolves. And if we see it as like this triangle, let's say, so, and here we have the, well, wait, here we have the extremes, right? And so like, you can, yeah, you can try to be mindful about like being in one extreme and the other, and then trying to like connect them, and always try to um yeah, feel when you're like literally like this between the extremes, somewhere here down. And the more up you are, the less yeah, change you feel, or the
Yeah,
less
less of the contrast.
of the contrast you feel. But then like, yeah, honestly, um and I mean, I'm still also learning. It's a bit of like, I guess it's a bit of the dialectical way of seeing things, that like nothing is ever stable and everything is moving and changing all the time. So from that point of view, like in any present moment, you should be like the most present, and try to be like adjusting this between the extremes. And it like never really stops, because everything is like always moving. Of course it can get like, you can get probably like to you can reach a very high virtue to like be probably somewhere at the top, which I, for example, feel with foiling. But yeah, it takes the time to be actually aware of like you being in those extremes. Mm. And but I think also, I think this is my supposition, that like experiencing the very edges of the extremes is also good and important in order to be able to like connect them.
Yeah.
And so like if we talk about, for example, yeah, you're working so much and you're like so proactive and always productive, to experience also the opposite. And
Yeah.
like for that, so I have lived to the past years a lot of time in Latin American countries, where at the beginning, and I studied in Mexico too. So when I was like 22, so it was at the beginning like very difficult because I was like, okay, I understand that I need to adjust from my like super organized life, but still like I couldn't understand it. And honestly, it's been just like, yeah, it took me probably 10 years to actually understand, or to be able to try to live it how they do, and to actually like, they, for example, in Dominican Republic, they are able to tell you I'm busy, and they are obviously sitting there and doing nothing. And I'm like, when I saw it the first time, be like, how can you say you're busy? Like, busy is other word. Like, you're not busy. Not. Sorry, you're not busy. um to actually get to a point where I understood it's so important. And I'm not saying, right, um like I lived pretty much extremes, like being raised in Czech Republic, doing my studies in Germany, Austria, and then like living somewhere on a beach in Dominican Republic. Um, but so like my idea is, it's like when connecting those extremes, then, and like being able to play with them, can probably lead you to like very nice and optimal performance.
Yeah, I can relate to that because I have been in one extreme and the other. And in one ways, you learn that being in either of extremes doesn't really work or it's not sustainable long term. And then it's like, okay, how do you find that balance? And that's when the game begins. And it's also balance within seasons, because in one season you will have more the rest, with like another season you will have more of that intensity, depending on what's the focus of the season. But this has been fun, I must say.
Yeah, it's been
Uh,
a lot.
yeah. Before I ask you the last question, where can people find you? What is it that they can? I think you mentioned that offline, that you have program that you offer as well.
Yeah. So, as I've mentioned, I'm also a psychologist, and I concentrate on exactly like these topics: how to lead people to peak performance or to optimal functionality of the body and the mind. Um, and I do this online mostly, also in person, but like mostly online as I travel a lot. And yeah, you can find me on my Instagram, which is Katka Salandova, or also under the brand called Kalios Coaching. And yeah, as you mentioned, I have also developed an online program where, yeah, I, let's say, put together specifically audios that I use to accompany my one-on-one coaching or group coaching, and also it's a possibility to like touch or like have the first like feelings how you can get into uh, flow state of relaxation or flow state of high productivity, how you can let go of certain like small limitations or fears. And this is, yeah, through audios and specific like music that I'm using, that I'm also using in the one-on-one sessions with eye movements. It's like bilateral movements, it's called. Yeah, and this can be found under the link that you will probably
Yeah.
put
Check
out
the
there.
show notes, people. Check the show notes. Okay. Last question is, what is the impossible that you're chasing now?
What is the impossible that I'm chasing now? I think I have mentioned it a bit.
The
I'm
nothing.
actually I'm actually trying to find out the way to like really be able to relax and calm down in a like sustainable and a good way. And yeah, I have reached a very high level in sports, which is amazing. And then, of course, the next thing was like, oh, I want this same flow. I want this in like my normal life. So that's where I'm now, to like getting it more into use in like more like academic or like writing level, or like producing some programs for athletes or for people in business who want to achieve their goals. And yeah, and I'm also writing 2 books, which is
Wow.
an interesting impossible, because with the other impossibles I had very clear the impossible, and then I would be like working myself there. And this kind of came because I see the need to like put together my knowledge, and like put together the scientific evidence that is not really seen out there. And the other is to actually like showcase this wu wei. So how to, for example, also what you mentioned, in the right moment, to be at the right time and like decide for the right thing, let's say, not being like sticking to something and being more in like this relaxed non-action way. And we are writing like travel diary, let's say, where we are showcasing these moments of Wu Wei. Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you
Thank you
for
so much.
all your wisdom. It was really really fun. And let me know when the books are out so that we can share them with people.
Of course I will.
All right.